They're known as Zamazamas in South Africa and Galamseys in Ghana, and they're part of the largest mining workforce in the world. The World Bank estimates that there are 45 million small-scale miners across 80 countries globally, and up to 90% of them operate informally without the licenses and permits and in poor conditions. Welcome, everyone. I'm Grace Kuriakanja, and this is Africa Matters. It's no different in South Africa, and the closed Stilfontein mine has been at the center of global attention for weeks now. Hundreds, if not thousands, of illegal miners are trapped underground. Tseho Fatso Maholeho traveled there and brings us this report.
Thandeka Tom does not know if her brother Ayanda is dead or alive. He has been trapped in this mine for 4 months. She says things are worse now that the authorities have taken over the community's rescue efforts.
Even if the system as a community we were using, it was slow. But one thing that I know, each time we throw the rope down there, it came out with the person. So now we are stuck in a position whereby they are saying that they are going with phrases. And the phrases, it seems like it's more slower than us.
It has been almost 2 weeks since a task team was appointed to bring the illegal miners to surface. As many as 4,000 illegal miners, or Zamazamas as they are known here, could be in this disused mine in Stilfontein in South Africa's northwest province. But officials estimate that up to 400 of them have been underground for months. There are concerns about the well-being of the Zamazamas after police recently cut off their supply to food and water.
I'm assuming that his condition is very bad. It's very bad. I'm hoping that he's still alive. Yes, I can't say that I'm expecting anything. I don't want to expect anything. I want to expect my brother alive.
Following intelligence that we received from one of the volunteers here, they explained to us how bad the conditions are in there, detailing that a lot of people are sick whilst others are dead.
Since last weekend, 34 Zamazamas have been arrested as they resurfaced. The youngest was just 14 years old, and at least 96 of the more than 1,200 illegal miners arrested are from neighboring countries such as Mozambique, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. The miners that have surfaced say many of them are sick and that they are being forced to dig for gold in exchange for food and water. Their families are accusing the authorities of being heavy-handed with them, whilst the government says a rescue operation is in its final planning stage. Tseho Fatso Maholeho, Africa Matters, Stilfontein, South Africa.
Africa's largest gold producer, Ghana, faces a similar problem. Illegal small-scale gold mining known as Galamsey has damaged the environment and contaminated rivers with heavy metals, leaving millions without access to clean water. Experts warn if the situation persists, Ghana could be importing water by 2030. Key state officials and politicians have been named as culprits, but none have been prosecuted. A Swiss aid report shows that in 2022 alone, at least 435 tons of gold was smuggled out of the African continent, which is worth about $31 billion. That's more than a ton of gold every single day. The report also shows that it's traded in Dubai and that gold smuggling more than doubled between 2012 and 2022. Now let's hear more from Sean Doty. He leads Control Risks Business Intelligence and Global Risk Analysis practices in Southern Africa. He joins me from Cape Town, South Africa. Let's dive in straight away. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Now, illegal mining is a global problem, that's right. But then what makes it different in Africa, if at all?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in particular about Africa that exacerbates illegal mining. I think illegal mining is prevalent in countries with weak governance, with poor institutions. So any country with low growth economies or which have governments that don't do a good job of making sure that any economic gains are translated into service delivery and opportunities for citizens, or that don't have institutions in place like police, security, a legal system to actually enforce laws which make artisanal mining illegal. These countries are going to see a rise in illegal mining. So it's by no means different here in Africa, but but I think it's more prevalent here because of the weak governance and poor institutions in many of the countries.
And let's talk about that, because in Ghana, for instance, President Nana Akufo-Addo ordered the immediate cessation of, all forms of mining, legal or illegal. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned illegal mining, but it's still on the rise. Why is this? And also, just how can governments make it better for miners? Because the truth is, these people who bear the brunt of it all, these people who are in these shafts for months, days and weeks and years possibly, they reap very little of this. So how can governments ensure that these miners benefit?
Yeah, well, I think obviously dealing with those institutions and governance is going to help. Having opportunities for those who see mining as a way to make money. If you can have other opportunities for these people, it's going to help illegal mining. As far as what governments might need to do, I think there needs to be a recognition that rather than always trying to fight artisanal and small-scale miners and making it illegal or banning it altogether as Ghana did, rather look at ways of formalizing it. Formalizing these small mines where they have to have licenses, where they have to fulfill environmental duties, which is one of the main reasons for the banning in Ghana. I think what we've seen here in South Africa is that we can condemn illegal mining all that we want, but it's still going to keep occurring. It's still going to keep increasing if we don't have the opportunities, if we don't have new strategies to actually deal with the issues that cause it.
So best embrace it, that's what you're saying?
Well, embrace it, but regulate it.
Embrace it, but regulate it. Okay, right. All right. Let's on the presentation that we just had, we've mentioned some high-ranking government officials, some high-ranking politicians, armed groups who are accused of being part of syndicates that benefit from illegal mining. So, is there actually any political goodwill to tackle this issue?
I think it depends really on which politician we're looking at. I think it's good to remember that the illegal mining industry is a huge business, and those at the top of it, those who are running the organization from the mining, smuggling, laundering, they're making a lot of money, and there's no incentive on their part to shut it down. But that said, I wouldn't blame all of this on politicians or those in the political sphere. There's a lot of domestic foreign business people who are also heavily involved. I know we do a lot of work for our clients who are looking at partners in the region to make sure that none of those entities, none of the shareholders have links or involvement with illegal mining and smuggling across the continent because it has become such a large business. So I think dependent on where we're looking, there are politicians who are trying to work and actively tackle this issue. But we also have to accept that they're being hamstrung not only by some of the others in government, but also by some of the people in the private sector as well.
But then again, because there's high-ranking individuals that are linked with this syndicate that we're talking about, is that perhaps one of the reasons why it's been so hard to deal with this issue?
I mean, it's hard to say for sure whether, obviously, as we have seen, there's a lot of reports about very high-ranking people in politics or people who are linked to people high up in politics, which is likely going to hamstring any efforts to stop it. But I think it's not enough to just say that's the one reason why it's not starting, but it's definitely an issue that's part of a larger problem.
But at the center of it all is the people, sir, because we're talking about, we've established the issue that the miners in South Africa themselves are having to go through. And in Ghana in particular, we're talking about experts saying they could be exporting water in 2030. So it's a larger issue that does not just affect the miners themselves, but affects the entire population. So clearly something needs to be done, especially when you think of it and how big it is affecting, say, water, and Ghana having to import water in 2030.
Absolutely. It's something that should be on the top of government's minds, I think the international community as well. I think there has been a lot of work to try and tackle illegal mining and gold smuggling and other parts of the value chain. We have things like there's blockchain, there's ideas of having certifications throughout the value chain. And we do a lot of due diligence actually for gold buyers to ensure that suppliers they use are not coming from illicit sources. I think one of the issues obviously that gold, it's not like Bitcoin. It's a tangible thing, can be melted. And once that's done, it's very difficult to know which gold is from which mine. So there isn't really one solution, but I think rather there needs to be concerted effort, as you said, to use all of the devices we have at each level of government, at each level of business, be it blockchain, certification, intensive due diligence, to ensure that the gold and other minerals that are coming out are as clean as possible.
We've talked about smuggling of gold. Over a ton of African gold is smuggled daily. That's according to a Swiss Aid report. So what does this gold industry need to do to ensure that that particular issue, smuggling, is tackled?
I mean, it's a good question. Like I said, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. I think there are countries in Africa that have been doing a lot of good things. Rwanda, Tanzania have fairly successful formalization and artisanal mining license programs. Botswana as well was doing fairly well of limiting illegal mining, though this has risen quite a bit in the past several years as the economy has deteriorated. But I don't think there's any kind of, I guess, gold standard for African countries on managing illegal. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. What works in Rwanda is not going to work in Mali. That said, yeah, as I said before, I think there needs to be concerted effort in each country at each level to find a way to either formalize the sector, find other opportunities for the people who are actually doing it, as you say, and then from there, track and trace the goods up the supply chain.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sean Doty, there for your time and your contribution. Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I am Isaac Kanleji here in Accra to tell you how some activists are pushing for policy changes to stop African countries from becoming a dumping site for plastic waste from the West and Asia.
To Malawi now, where security forces dispersed crowds protesting against the month-long shortages of fuel, foreign currency and other basic goods. They accuse the government of failing to address the crisis that crippled essential services such as public transport and hospitals. Malik Mnela was on the streets of Lilongwe and brings us this report.
The road is not as busy as it usually is because of two main reasons. One is the scarcity of fuel. Most vehicles are parked because there is fuel scarcity. Demonstrations were scheduled to take place, but have been followed by police who dispersed crowds that were gathering by firing canisters of tear gas. But also, we noticed that there were armed youths whose identity remains unknown, but are suspected to be aligned with the ruling party, the Malawi Congress Party. However, officials dispute any association with these youths. Sylvester Namiwa is one of the main organizers of the protests that are taking place in Lilongwe. And he says fuel scarcity, lack of forex to procure goods from outside the country are some of the reasons that have prompted them to come out.
So coming in of the fuel crisis has just worsened the situation because it has taken a toll on the economy. We demand that the Minister of Energy should immediately resign for overseeing the unprecedented fuel crisis in this country.
Unfortunate that our country took this direction. You see, for the past 5 years, we have been experiencing these demonstrations, but as you have seen today, people have been chased with pangas, panga knives, have been chased with axes to chase their fellow Malawians who want to demonstrate their rights. It's very unfortunate that the police choose not to protect the people.
It remains to be seen if these people are indeed going to get fired or if the economy of Malawi will get back on track.
Now, plastic waste is a major problem across the world, and African countries fear they could also become a dumping ground for much of it. There are ongoing initiatives to recycle and upcycle, but activists in Ghana want better and more efficient policies to address this disaster. Isaac Kaleji has more from the capital, Accra.
It's a busy day for these beach kumes in Ghana's capital, Accra. They are passionate about keeping spaces like these clean. Most of the waste being collected is plastic.
For us, we do carry out beach cleanups to be able to understand the sources of these pollutants and collect relevant data. What we realize is that, yes, we have an underlying problem of inefficient waste management systems, and therefore most of that waste is from Ghana. However, we do also find traces of some pollutants which generally or originally did not originate from this. You could attribute this to transboundary pollutants. So yes, the plastic pollution menace is really at a devastating point over here in Ghana.
As with many places in the world, A deluge of plastic pollution is slowly smothering this country's environment.
You have plastics entering the oceans. We've recorded some aquatic animals, like aquatic organisms or things like fish, which have shown some plastic. Some whales were dead, the turtles and all that have ingested plastics, and then it led to their death. And also when you have plastics in the environment, it destroys the aesthetic scenes and all that.
Ghana generates almost 1 million tons of plastic waste every year. Not only is the use of single plastics high, but poor waste management and limited recycling practices add to the problem. Activists say the problem isn't just generated locally, but it's made worse by plastic waste coming in from Western and Asian nations. Effective policies that control the import of waste would be key to addressing the issue.
But it is not only policy that prevents the dumping of plastics and associated waste in Ghana. Green entrepreneurs like Ya Birago and his team at Soko Bags want to also create local but viable alternatives for plastics.
So the whole point is for us to eradicate plastic bags. And we know that plastic bag pollution, a single-use plastic bag pollution, is one of the biggest problems in Ghana. So we want to be able to be in a position to work with the government and private organizations to make sure that the solution is resolved. So that is why Soko Bags is here.
Many Ghanaians seem committed to joining the fight against plastic waste pollution, but it remains to be seen how far government is willing to go to back these efforts with effective policies. Isaac Kaleji, Africa Matters, Accra.
To North Africa now, where donkeys have been used to help with cleaning up the old historic quarters of some towns for decades. Now, the tight, winding streets of a town can be challenging for modern vehicles to navigate, but donkeys are well suited to trotting down the narrow paths while carrying heavy loads, so they've joined the fight against rubbish, as Uzama Sinochi reports.
In the heart of the historic town within the city of Algiers, an ancient solution has become the key to the modern problem of garbage collection. With streets too narrow for trucks, the people here are turning to an unexpected hero, the donkey. The waste collectors were shy to speak to the camera, but Mohammed told us that he is proud of his job, cleaning the streets for the past 20 years using donkeys. Mohammed's daily routine starts at dawn, guiding the donkeys to collect trash from designated points, which he believes brings a sense of continuity with the past. This initiative has garnered both praise and criticism, demonstrating the complex balance between traditional and modern urban needs.
When visitors come here, they know that they will see everything traditional. So this method for cleaning is part of the traditional image.
I call on all visitors to contribute in keeping the old neighborhood clean in every possible way to help the cleaners.
Some citizens and business owners say that many people who live here do not comply with the cleaning regulations of the neighborhood.
It's a very tiring job. I can tell you that we should respect the time of their shifts. If they clean twice a day, it means we put our garbage out just twice, not 10 times. So cleanliness depends on us by 90%.
Environmental activists have weighed in on the debate. Ilyas, an advocate for sustainable urban living, has led many cleaning campaigns and supports the initiative, saying it preserves the spirit and authenticity of the UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Cleanliness is a culture, not just a process. We grew up with a special way of cleaning that is different from urban areas. First comes maintenance and restoration, and then cleaning comes after.
In this town, the answer to modern waste is found in the past. In a world searching for sustainable solutions, the humble donkey is leading the way forward. The revival of the use of the donkey here is not just about tradition. It's about finding a sustainable path for the future while ensuring the welfare of both the animals and the people.
Now, an international monitor on displacement across Africa has just issued some bleak news in its latest report. Internal displacement across the continent has tripled in the past 15 years. Rahul Radhakrishnan has more.
Years of warnings and inaction have amounted to this. According to the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, or IDMC, There are now 35 million people displaced within their own countries across Africa. That's nearly half the number of internally displaced worldwide.
The main reason is that the conflict and the violence that is creating this displacement causes cyclical patterns of displacement, and the people who were displaced by conflicts already 10, 15, in some cases 20, 25 years ago have not been able to find a solution to their displacement. They haven't been able to return home in some cases, particularly in places that are affected by protracted waves of conflict.
The report highlights how 80% of internally displaced people, or IDPs, come from just 5 countries: the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Somalia, and Sudan. All countries are mired in conflict, both old and new, but which show no sign of abating. Climate change and natural disasters are only making things worse.
We're seeing now more and more convergence of both, political and environmental factors that are making for very complex patterns of displacement. So, if we take as an example Nigeria, that has, for the last 15 years, shown very high numbers of conflict-related IDPs, people who were displaced by the waves of the violence caused by Boko Haram, particularly in the northeast of the country. But that country is also experiencing regular and cyclical flooding.
Internally displaced people typically receive less focus from aid groups than refugees who flee across borders. But displacement is just as devastating for livelihoods, cultural identities, and social ties with communities. The African Union's Kampala Convention on Protecting and Assisting IDPs has been in force since 2012, laying out the responsibilities of state and non-state actors to address the issue. But worsening conflicts and climate uncertainty year after year have made it difficult for governments to implement the treaty, and the new year may not be much different. Unless, says the IDMC, peace-building efforts, diplomacy, and conflict transformation are given priority. Rahul Radhakrishnan, Africa Matters.
And finally, we head to South Africa, where enjoying jazz has been a long tradition, and our village elders in Marapiane are plugging into the Vanguard Jazz Movement Club, which uses music and dance to help older residents interact with peers and unwind, as Brenda Radido reports.
The sound of jazz music draws retirees from different walks of life gathered to this social club. They all have one thing in common: vintage dressing. 73-year-old Salome Seke, a retired teacher, is preparing for tonight's jazz session. Her granddaughter ensures that she gets it right when it comes to the theme.
We should not just sit at home as pensioners, because just sitting in one place at times, it ruins your mind. Your body is not active, so even when illness comes, it persists. But if you move, things are so much better.
Back at the village Vanguard Jazz Movement Club, everyone has their own moves, grooving along to the rhythm of the music. It's a physical and emotional experience.
I want to dance. I want to dance one day. Yeah, I want to see me dancing. Yeah, I love it. Jazz. It's not too much sound like for the small child. I like it because there's some big guys and the older, not the younger.
I also dance, depending on how moved I am by the music playing. Because sometimes it's necessary that you must dance. Sometimes it's enjoyable to also just listen to the combination of instruments playing and soak in the music.
The jazz club started last year in the village, and it has gained a lot of attention in the Mpumalanga province, even though most of its members are older residents. Paul Seke says there are no age restrictions.
What you see, the footwork, experience or whatever, is just a theme to attract people. But it's a way of doing things differently.
South Africa is widely known for the dance music genre Amapiano. But it also has a deep history of jazz, which flourished in the mid-1900s and was rooted in the resistance movement. For Salome and her peers, it has also provided a space for self-expression and connection. Brenda Radido, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you'd like us to cover on YouTube or on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Grace Kuria Kanja.